since you were on 9 months ago, you guys didn't just talk.
You, my friend, have been very busy.
Yeah, I wasn't joking. Yeah, it's been busy. I know we have a lot to talk about.
Welcome to the Tom Storey Show with Steve Karrasch and Tom Storey, where we discuss everything real estate or whatever else is on our minds.
Welcome back to another episode of the Tom Storey Show. If you're watching us on YouTube, well, thank you. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like this video if you learned anything new today. If you're listening on the audio platforms, I hope you're having a great drive. Or maybe you're walking your dog because, Steve, today's guest actually told us he listens to our show when he walks his dog.
Yeah, who knew, hey? What an influence we are having on Canadian real estate and policy.
So we have a return guest today, and we're very excited to show you that interview. We're going to get to it in a moment here. But Steve, can you tell the listeners who we had back on the show and what we chatted about and what they can be in for this episode? Because I honestly think, listen, our first 99 episodes were good. Our next 100 are and we're off to a really good start. Like the conversations we're having, the people we're getting on the show, we've been very, very lucky. So, who's on the show this week?
And our cancellations have been even bigger as well. So that's kind of fun. Like we had an even bigger cancellation that was fantastic. So, but this week, thankfully, after much hounding, the return of BC Housing Minister Ravi Kahlon, who did let it slip that he listens to our show when he walks his dog on Sunday morning. I listen to my podcasts at nighttime, usually when I'm doing dishes. So
really, I'm a driving podcast guy. That's pretty much it.
My wife does dinner and then I do the dishes. And then I'll catch her like listening to a podcast or watching, I don't know, Housewives or something like that. And then I'll do the dishes and that's my quiet time. So there you go.
Okay. So a few, I wanted to bring up some housekeeping notes actually.
Okay.
Mostly about things that are about to change specifically here in Toronto and Ontario real estate. When we had Nathan Dart on, remember that episode? If anyone's watched that episode, if not, go back and watch it after you watch this one, where we talked about transparency and open offers and making everything just like where the buyer feels like even if they ended up paying a little bit more than maybe they wanted to, at least it was clean because they knew what the other offer was. That program, Final Offer, our brokerage is one of the first to launch it in Toronto. We're going to be offering it as an additional tool to our sellers. And I want to be a first mover on this. I want to really figure out, is it something people are going to want to use? Because the first thing for them, they're trying to get real estate agents to use it, but the public's going to have to demand it for it to be widely adopted, right? And I think hopefully what I'll do is I'll get Nate on my main channel at one point, hit him with 10 questions, cut it up, and be like, here's the main questions people have on both the real estate and the consumer side. But it's exciting. We've been waiting a long time for this, and it's finally here.
It is exciting, but why is it one of our least viewed episodes? Because nobody really cares until they're in the transaction. Isn't that the problem with this whole thing? Right? We're trying to we're doing all this transparency. There's all this but nobody cares. And that's the issue I have. For instance, when there is people behaving badly in the industry, there's so many times where my clients, just don't follow through necessarily with even the complaints, right? Because nobody cares because they just want to get on with their life. So I think it's a great tool, but can we get people to care and want to use those tools? We'll see.
It's all going to come down to what is a better experience for the consumer. And if the consumer demands it, then the industry is going to start using it. And I'll tell you, a lot of the big brokerages here have been first movers on it. And I think because of that, it's like every other piece of software we have in our industry. The big ones do it first and everyone catches up and then eventually everybody has it, right? I also have a market kind of idea of what's happening here. I'd love to know what's going on in your market. Inventory is coming hot and heavy, hot and heavy. But what's interesting, I was just at an event just before we actually did the interview that you're going to watch with Ravi, and I was in a room with the top 1% of Royal LePage agents from across Canada. So these are the people that are doing the most amount of business in every single market across this country, and every single person I talked to said, "How you doing? How's your year doing?" And every single person was like, "Yeah, we're doing really well compared to last year."
Really?
But everything was compared to last year because last year was such a low sales volume year for everybody that comparing it to that makes it sound really good. But if you looked over the March numbers in the city of Toronto for sales volume, it was like 2009 was the last time that few sales actually happened. So it's this weird thing where we're actually continuing to see now a trend of prices going up almost every single month for every type of property. But then sales volume still not only like lower than the 10-year average, but going back like 15, 20 years some cases. So what are you seeing on your end of things?
Yeah, same sort of deal. So we had the numbers came out, and I think it was 30% below the sales average, or the 10-year sales average. Second lowest number of sales for the month of March in 10 years. So
what are you seeing though? Are people trying to do things? I know like a lot more listings are coming because we didn't have much inventory to start the year. But like, what are you finding in your day to day? Like, what are buyers eager to do things? Are they just kind of like, even though prices have gone up, they're kind of waiting for the right opportunity?
Yeah, they're the buyers we are working with, which is few, and the listings are coming on, like you're saying. They're saying, "Well, I got options now, so I'm just going to hold off." And I mean, that's I just did a video on my channel about this. It's the sheeple effect, right? Finally, now you have the ability to get that place that last spring you were like, I'm losing out on all these multiple offers, and now you're like, I'm going to wait for a better offer. It's almost like the Tinder effect, right? Is
Why
everybody
is it?
like swiping left, just like, oh, now I got another one. Now I got another option. When before it was like, if you don't swipe right, you don't get any more swipes.
Why is it that we want to do things when other people do things and we don't want to do things when other people don't want to do things? Like, is that just a human trait that we have that a certain percentage of the population is just like, and I know there's like negative connotations to this being a follower or a sheep, like things people say. Why is that?
But don't you find when you're talking to your clients, like a lot of them just want to know it's okay to proceed?
Yep.
Right. So when you're talking to them, everybody's like, yeah, I have to do this, or I want to do this, or whatever. And then a lot of the time, they're just looking for you to give them permission to do it. So this is actually a slippery slope in this business because
Agreed.
you could run into someone who says it's always okay to do it as long as they're the one making a paycheck off of it. Right. And then the other side of that coin is, if I tell someone what you're trying to propose right now is a stupid idea, they often will go find someone else that tells them it's a good idea. Right. So that's the tough part of this industry. So people just want that reinforcement. And I think there's a whole lot of people, given what the market's doing right now, that missed an opportunity to sell in February. And we're going to start seeing a healthy amount. And this is where we get roasted all the time, which like, I'm happy with a healthy amount of listings. I don't think there should be crazy amounts of pressure to buy, but you also at that same time shouldn't just wait for the next best option, right? Like you should look at and make the move when the time is right for you. And now you're going to get a bunch of people holding off. And you know when they're going to jump back in, Tom?
When everybody else
after we get some, exactly. After we get some rate cuts. After it makes the news, and then people are going to be like, oh, the market's good again. The market's good. I better buy in before prices go up. And you just missed what I think is going to be 6 months of a healthy, good market. Yeah. So get in, you dummies. Like this is the time when you have options. And then I'm sorry, I just called all the buyers dummies. I apologize. I just realized I did that. But this is the time when you have options to do what you want to do and you don't feel the pressure. But I think maybe the difference is the buyers that are out there right now haven't really felt that pressure of the previous years. So they don't know how bad it can be against you. So they don't know how good they have it now.
Yeah, but that's like everything in life. You never know until you don't have it or you have it again, right? You're never really going to know.
I guess so,
man. You know how we were talking about the fact that as market slowly picks up, one of the first signs is you see real estate agents post on social media how many shoes are at the front door of their open house.
Yeah, the leading indicator of the real estate
It's a
market.
so I'll give you a leading indicator of listings coming to the market. My photographer, our main photographer, who we've been using for a long time, for the first time ever, we reached out. We had 3 listings we need photos of. He's like, I am fully booked next week. I'm like, fully booked? Fully booked.
Yeah. I have
So
no
what does that
time for
mean?
Tom Storey.
It means a lot of listings. And he's not
And
the
it's
only
like,
one.
dude, I send you all this business. Start canceling some of those guys that only have their first listing.
He fit us in. He did fit us in. But still, I haven't had. It wasn't even me. My administrator makes those calls. But she relayed that information back to me. I'm like, oh my god, that's weird. And then we're reaching out to our stagers and whatnot on properties that are coming up. And they're like, okay, here's the dates we have. Where it used to just be like, when you want to do it. Yeah. So that tells me that did we talked about this with Carly, but like, did the spring market come already? In activity, maybe it came already. In prices, it's too soon to maybe say that, but there's a lot going on.
There is a lot going on, but a lot of listings. Like, so your office, probably similar to my office. I don't know if you guys do this or not, but like most real estate brokerages at the end of every day, they'll update their own agents with all the other agents and the new listings that came just through their brokerage. It's kind of like a heads up, like these are what we sent to MLS to process today. So these are the listings you'll see tomorrow on the market, right? And then they do the same with sales.
Yep.
And I want to say Tuesday after the long weekend, maybe, or Wednesday after the long weekend, that new listing sheet was, I was scrolling, but I was like, whoa. And there was like 4 sales.
But let me ask you a question. Doesn't this happen every April?
It does, but the difference is like that magic 6,000 number that I always talk about for my market, 6,000 active listings, 6,000 to 6,500 is healthy. Right. And we got there about last September. We're currently, I looked yesterday, I didn't look today. I think we were at 5,400. Now, we got there in September last year when the market kind of bulged with high interest rates and all that stuff. We're already approaching that, and we're probably, by the end of the month, going to be at that level, right? So if that they're coming on about 400 or 500 a week extra. So
and are they mostly properties that didn't sell at the end of last year that are now giving it a try because now they've seen the market's actually picked up, or are they fresh listings that just came to the market? I guess it's hard to know unless you look at every single one.
I think a lot of them are fresh. But it's weird. I was just before we started this, I was just looking at the new hot sheets that came out, and isn't it weird that like in some neighborhoods, you'll see like the same house sell every 2 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's like, is that house like cursed or something? Like, what's going on with that house?
There's one location around where you live, and the restaurant turns over every 2 years. And it's just like, you look at, you're like, oh, another one, gone. A new one opens, and right away you're like, I feel bad for them. They didn't know they picked that location.
Yeah. Why does it turn over so much? And it sells every time. But it's like, why is the last 4 owners only been there for 2 years?
I could maybe guess. I don't know in this exact situation, but the turnover that we see in Toronto for specific types of houses in different neighborhoods is if it's like the semi in Toronto with the 15-foot wide lot instead of the 20-foot wide lot, and then they have the second kid and realize like, we need to move on this, or you get the place with 2 bedrooms instead of 3. Those just naturally turn over more because people grow out of them faster. That's what I've seen.
Well, that could be, I guess. Interesting.
Steve, you know what I think we should do?
I think we should get to our guest. And I guess we should say the only reason we're doing it this way is because we only had 20 minutes with him, which we turned into 30 minutes, and we were like, we're not going to stop talking. So that's why we got a half catch up episode here. Yeah. And we should hop into that. So, Tom Storey, how about we hop into the interview right now, right after a word from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Realty Ninja, real estate agents. Listen up. Realty Ninja has created over 9,000 Canadian real estate websites, and they are no joke. I've been using Realty Ninja in my business since they were a small little startup in North Vancouver. Tiny, dusty little office with old leather couch and all. But look at the ninjas now. Realty Ninja is the go-to platform for real estate agents in Canada. Websites are no longer a nice to have. They are a must. Your clients expect you to feature their listings in the best light possible. They expect you to go with Realty Ninja. The backbone of my real estate business is my website. I wouldn't pick any other company to host my website other than Realty Ninja. Don't believe me? Go to my website. Check it out right now. Go to krproperties.ca and you will see that it's powered by Realty Ninja and has been for over a decade. They have all of the features I need to grow my business year after year, including lead capture, mobile-friendly design, built-in SEO, and so much more. The best part of Realty Ninja is it's totally free to sign up, no credit card is required, and you only pay when you are ready to launch your new Realty Ninja website. And no, that's not it. Sign up today at realtyninja.com/Tom, and you will receive 20%, yes, 20% off of your entire first year when using Realty Ninja to host your real estate website. Their templates are super easy to work with yourself, or you can have the ninjas design something for you like I did. Not only is Realty Ninja the best product on the market, but it's also affordable. Listeners of this show know that I am as cheap as they come, and I've been using Realty Ninja for well over a decade now. Start your free trial today, and when you launch, save 20% using our link in the description below. And let Realty Ninja help you take your real estate business to the next level. And now, back to the podcast.
All right, our guest, the current sitting Minister of Housing for BC, and probably our only guest we ever get to call Honorable. The Honorable Housing Minister, Ravi Kahlon. Welcome back. Can we call you a friend of the show now? Is that possible when you come back a second time?
Well, when you've invited me twice, I consider myself a friend of the show. So whether you think I'm a friend of the show or not, I consider myself a friend of the show. So thanks for having me back.
Awesome. We appreciate you being here. You, my friend, since the last time we spoke, I think last June, have been very busy.
Yeah, I wasn't joking when I was on last time that we had some major changes coming, and it's a long time coming, I think. The things that we've been able to do were things that I know people have been talking about for, quite frankly, more than 2 decades. It's been busy. I know we have a lot to talk about.
So Ravi, one thing me and Steve talk about a lot is that Canadians love to complain, right? Steve's a complainer. I make fun of him about it all the time. But what we can't complain about is that since you were on 9 months ago, you guys didn't just talk. Like, you're doing it. So I just like to get started here. Like, what's the feedback been like? Like, what's your life been like? Is it the response you were expecting? Is there more pushback than you thought? Like, what's the day-to-day been like since you've introduced everything that you've done?
Well, I think the one surprising thing has been that it's a national conversation. The changes we're bringing in BC are now being discussed in every province, in fact, in the U.S. as well. And we get folks from different cities across the U.S. reach out and say, hey, what are you doing? Just last week, I had a delegation from Chile that came up with their local representatives. It was a housing consortium that came up to talk about the reforms we were doing, how we're talking about housing, because the challenges are similar in so many parts of the world. And I was saying to them, we're learning from other jurisdictions and we're enacting. And of course, we want to share and learn along the way. So that's been kind of the more surprising thing about it. But beyond that, it's pretty much what I thought it was going to be. Those that oppose it are the ones who oppose it. Those that think that this is helpful, I think are more excited than when we first laid out our plan. And quite frankly, we're not done. We have more to do. And the suggestion that one solution will solve the housing crisis, it's just not going to happen. We got to do multiple things at once. We did some major changes, but we still have a lot of important things still ahead of us.
I definitely have. I'll go for it, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I got a quick selfish question. I know Steve's got a list of things he wants to go over, all the changes. As somebody who lives in Toronto and Ontario,
Have you had any conversations with our province about what you guys are doing? Are they watching it very closely?
I haven't had a chance to talk to the new Minister of Housing over there. I did have conversations with the previous Minister of Housing, and I did share with him about, things we were looking to do at that time. And, he seemed very interested. But I haven't met with the new Minister of Housing yet in Ontario. I do know that some recent comments by the Premier of Ontario around fourplexes has got me busy with media interviews. And so, and what I've been saying pretty publicly is that, Premier Ford can decide what best for people. So, but fourplexes are just the start for us. It's a bare minimum. TOD is just bare minimum. And, quite frankly, any jurisdiction that wants to try to address housing, these are the minimum things that we have to do. But again, I'll leave it to them to figure out their path forward. But if you don't allow fourplexes and you have to get millions of homes built, I just don't know how it's going to be possible.
And what Tom had kind of, you said, like, this is happening. You've been busy. And I'm going to come out and say, hey, I don't agree with all the changes, but I have to give you credit for, you're not just talking about it. This is actually happening. So I just had a quick list here. And there's only, so far that I've got on here, 12 items. So let me know which I've missed. So we got the 3, 4, 6-plex upzoning. We've got increased density around transit. We've got pre-approved building plans, which is something you announced like 2 days after you came on last time. So thank you very much for not letting us do that last time. Removal of strata rental restrictions, which was a little bit of an older one. Same with the age restrictions. The cooling off period, which I'm currently dealing with right now on a deal. Speculation tax expansions into different areas. That's gone on. Short-term rental restrictions. Municipal housing targets. Finally, thank you. I will give you a big thank you for this one. Gave some relief to first-time buyers on the property transfer tax. The anti-flipping tax, which I'm sure we can disagree on a bunch of stuff for. And then this last week, you just came out with a whole bunch of sweeping stuff in regards to rentals. Have I missed anything?
Yeah, you missed a couple of things, man. I'll fill in a few of the pieces, which is we've waived public hearings for any project that comes within official community plans in communities, which is saving, more than a year on many projects. And, it's different between a project penciling and not. We're going to be announcing very soon changes to mass timber building code to allow more sustainable buildings to be built. We're doing work around single egress stairs to allow those types of housing units to be built so that, you don't have to assemble as many properties as what's needed now with two staircases within the building code. And there's probably the rental protection fund, which is now, I think the Prime Minister just announced this morning, they're going to have the same program nationally. We launched BC Builds using government lands to build affordable housing for middle-income families, which the federal government announced, I think, yesterday. They're going to have Canada Builds, the same model. So I think that's it. There may be a few other pieces, but I think that's the big chunk.
And can we ask you, sorry, Steve, I got a quick question. Can we ask you, is there anything that we're working on right now that's next that you can talk about, or is still a lot of things kind of...
What are you gonna announce the day after we release this?
Well, there's nothing I'm going to announce the day after, but the building code changes are coming fairly soon. And, the mass timber piece, I'm a mass timber geek. And, people say to me, how are you going to build the housing? Like, it's one thing to unlock the permitting process and the local government process, which I feel like we're making some progress on. But where's the workforce going to come from to build the housing? And this is where mass timber plays a really important role, because as we see increased capacity of these prefabricated projects offsite, what we're going to see is good paying jobs, but we're also going to see these buildings go up much faster with less people needed, because it's just assembly on site, less disruption to local businesses, less disruption to people in community, and done almost double the speed. So mass timber building code changes, I think, are necessary to enable more types of housing, but also increase in heights. And then the single egress stairs will be a few months away. So nothing that you'll be like, oh my God, he came on and he did something. Well, I don't hope so. But of course, we're we're always purchasing lands too, right? Like, I think we talked about this last time. We're doing it, which is we had laws in place that said you can't buy land near transit-oriented development that's beyond what you need for just a transit. And we're like, well, that's crazy, because if you want to build livable communities around transit, you want healthcare, you want maybe schools, you want childcare, but you can't build it because we're not allowed buying it. Doesn't make any sense. So we're actually in the market purchasing lots and parcels so that we can have complete communities.
Can you explain that? Like you said, mass timber. I'm not even totally familiar with the phrase or what exactly you mean by that.
So mass timber essentially is taking multiple pieces of wood and just making big solid chunks out of them. And you'll see some of the buildings in BC has actually the most in North America. We're leading the way in this space. And essentially I said triple word score, right? You get to keep most of the wood that we're shipping off to other countries here. You get to create good paying jobs. It's tech and innovation because we have leading architects and designers in BC right now. And we get to build sustainably. Like, you don't get many things that are better than that. And so basically manufacturing companies in Structurecraft in Abbotsford, Structureland in Penticton, and Klasnikov in Nelson, these companies are helping end-to-end design of housing. They're helping all of it being prefabricated, designed on site, and they just basically get on site and it's like Lego. They're just putting these buildings up, and it's amazingly how fast it is.
Are these like multi-unit buildings, or are these like single-family homes?
We got everything. We've got homes, residential homes. We've got facilities that we're building, senior care homes we're building. The museum expansion that's happening on the island, it's being built with mass timber. So we're using public procurement to create the demand, and then we're trying to create the space for the private sector to step in and fill that. And that will actually lower costs for private sector developers over time, because they'll be able to scale up with government projects. So, we're doing a whole bunch of things to try to expedite this. But, the thing about these projects is they're beautiful. Like, you walk into a building and you see this beautiful wood everywhere in glass. I mean, I always say to folks, when I was in the economic recovery file, I went to Ireland. And I was in Dublin talking to folks, because they lead the world when it comes to beef. And they were like, well, there's a huge trend in the world. Right now, buyers want to be more connected to their items they're buying than ever. So what you see is they want to know where the cow was raised, what it was fed, what its name was. They want to know the history. It's the same for housing units. I think within 10 years, people are going to want to know where the unit, where the wood came from the building, what First Nations lived there before, how was that product harvested. A complete history of our community is going to be reflected in our housing. And I think that's a good value add that we have to really leverage as we go forward.
That's a really interesting point, and actually something I haven't ever really thought of. I've never really thought of it that way. Now, all the changes you've made, of course, make headlines across the country and obviously provincially. Is there one, like if I had to guess, is the short-term rental restrictions the biggest one that caused the most amount of noise based on everything that's happened? Is that kind of what you thought?
Well, I mean, it's hard to know. I kind of do the thing and I leave. I go home and have my family, so it's kind of hard to know which one. I mean, I would say that they all have different impacts. I always say that the rental protection fund has had the most meaningful impact, and we haven't even rolled the whole fund out yet. Just last week, we purchased 2 buildings in Langley. We bought them from REITs. And so these REITs sold them to not-for-profit entities. And the message the CEO of the REITs said was, hey, the reason why we're selling it is because we think that this housing should be in not-for-profit hands. We're going to take our money and we're going to invest it in new purpose-built rentals because it's a better for our economic model. So a win for them, a win for us because we protect the renters. So that one is, I think, it pulls the heartstrings. So that was important. And of course, the changes to our system around zoning, it's huge. I mean, I already hear from people all over. They're like, hey, our project was stalled. And now we have the staff calling us and saying, hey, let's figure out how we're going to do it. So I think that one's having a big impact. And the one that I'm really looking forward to is, of course, a single egress stairs. I think that changing the building code to allow that it's going to be game changing, because then you don't have to have big property assemblies. You're able to do narrow buildings. You're able to do 3-unit buildings because it's all around one stairwell. And that's the type of units I think we desperately need in our communities.
Awesome. You mentioned a lot about rentals. So, and shout out to a viewer of our show who comments every single week, a username Dumb Money, who had the same question as I did. So I'm gonna answer it, or ask it to you. And that has to do. So there's a bunch of people that are now shifting. We're as Canadians almost shifting back into rentals as homeownership is starting to decline. And the stories in, not so much in BC, but in Ontario, are like the things happening between landlords and tenants can be really bad. You got what they nicknamed, professional tenants who take advantage of the system. And then you've got certain landlords who also take advantage of the system to evict people. So I do want to ask, I guess I'll do this in two parts. So what is it that you announced with rentals specifically? And then I'll ask a follow-up.
Yeah. And so I'll start with the renters and then we go to the landlord piece as well. So the renters piece is, there's a couple things. One, I think it's fundamentally wrong when a young family's about to have a kid and then they're told, oh, we got to raise your rent by $600 a month or $700 a month. I mean, we've had so many stories like this in the last year. It's unbelievable. And so you got a family who's like, hey, surprise, we're having a kid. And now we have to choose between having our kid and being able to still afford our home. Like, it's crazy. And we've also had cases where, in fact, I had one where a person had their daughter was going through a really hard time in her life, and they had to bring her granddaughter into the house. Otherwise, they were going to lose this child to the foster system. And they were told they had an increase, they were going to get an increase in the rent. So imagine that decision, right? So one of the changes we made was, you can't do that. If it's a child, if you're bringing another roommate in, I get it. There's an increased cost. But if it's a child, come on, like, we have to have some sanity on that. We also have issues when it comes to a lot of the seniors in particular are finding themselves with the personal use piece, finding themselves losing their home, and then going in the market and finding that, hey, there's nothing available for them, and then them coming to our shelters. Like, the amount of cases we're seeing with seniors through personal use going into our shelters, it's unbelievable. The Seniors Advocate wrote a report. We've got multiple reports saying the personal use piece with purpose-built rentals is a challenge. And just, I think it's important to say, majority of landlords and tenants are fantastic. There's really no issues. We got both ends of the spectrum where there's people who are abusing the system. So that we're not allowing purpose-built rentals with 5 or more units to use personal use. But below that, if you've got 3 units or you got a bedroom, a basement suite or 2 suites, we're saying you can still use it because you might want to bring a family member in, but we're digitizing the process. You can go online, fill in some basic information, get basically a document that you can hand to the tenant. So that means less disruption at the RTV, right? And it also creates more certainty for the tenant because then they have the information they need to, weigh what they want to do. And for government, we actually get data on what's happening in the marketplace. So it's kind of a win-win-win, I think, for everyone. And so those are some of the changes that we made for renters. And of course, we made some changes for landlords.
Yeah, and that's kind of the next step. So I'm a landlord. Tom, are you currently a landlord? I'm not sure if you are.
I am, yes.
Okay. So when things go bad, in my estimation, because I'm coming from it at the landlord point of view, the protections are so heavily in favor of tenants in the province of BC. What is being done to promote? Because, I mean, we're going to need these landlords. Like, they are a crucial part of this whole thing. We need landlords that will, for instance, buy new units coming to market and all that sort of thing to help these renters get affordable housing as well. So what are you doing, or what can be done to encourage people to still want to own a rental unit when it looks like the cards are getting stacked against the landlords?
Yeah, so the 3 things that are most common in British Columbia, and I can't speak for the Ontario context, but one is wait times through the RTV, the decision-making times, and that's a challenge. The second is when it comes to rent that has been paid. Maybe there's a judgment, and then you're like, how am I going to get this payment out of this person? Right? It can be a lengthy and sometimes costly process. And third is the situations you've kind of described, Steve, which is, it's not safe to have this person in the home anymore. And so what we're doing is a couple things. If you look at the wait times across the country, they are all going up, except for BC. Our wait times year over year have gone down 53% for hearings. We increased the budget by $45 million last year because we had to. The cases were going through the roof. We reformed the system. Simple things like, prior to this, when somebody filed a complaint, we had to give them a date. We had to give them a hearing. And then by then, sometimes the case was dealt with, but that hearing block was always held. Small things, but important things. Now we're moving towards oral judgments. So you don't have to have a full written report. You can just have an audio recording of the person saying it's done. We're moving towards facilitation so that when this dispute happens, somebody actually getting a call with two parties and saying, hey, let's work this out before it gets into a worse situation. So we're doing things, wait times are coming down. When it comes to unpaid, we just passed a legislation called the Money Judgment Act. We're working right now with landlord associations to say, okay, this new tool allows us to be able to get money that's owed, sometimes from tenants, but sometimes from landlords, in a more expedient manner. And so our goal is to have that launched by the end of the year. The legislation was passed. Now it's just the mechanics of how that would work. And lastly, part of the legislation we just tabled is when there's a safety or a health risk because of a tenant, we need to have some tools available within the RTA for that to be addressed by landlords. And so that's one of the things we're going to be doing a little bit of consultation on so that we get the language right. But I do think it's necessary to make sure that if you are renting a place out and, cops are constantly coming or there's some sort of risk to your family, like that's unacceptable. We have to find ways to deal with it. So those are the three things we're doing to support landlords. Again, we're trying to find a balance. Landlords will tell me, some landlords will tell me it's tenants are the problem. Some tenants will tell me, majority of people in the middle, they're like, hey, come on, let's just figure it out.
There's two. I don't know how much more time we have for you here, but I definitely want to talk about a couple of things. I don't even know if this one's on your radar yet. Okay. But it is something that many of our guests, including big developers, obviously, once you get the question, you'll know why, but a lot of people are pointing towards this development fee. And I asked you this question last time, and I kind of felt like I maybe should have pressed you a little bit harder on it, because right now, I think in the city of Surrey, it's something like 28% of the cost of a new unit is development fees. And I know, your answer was, hey, we do need these fees in order to, make the development, in order to do the infrastructure upgrades, all that sort of stuff. But the overwhelming feedback that we're getting from a lot of developers and mortgage brokers, we've heard from everybody, is does the province have a way that they could possibly look at reducing those fees and then shifting that onto the population as a whole through property taxes? Because the view is right now, only the new people trying to scrape into the market or bring new product, they're the ones that are getting penalized. When if there's a park fee on a high rise that's $55 million, everybody gets use of that park, whatever that's done. So is that something that's even been considered at this point?
Well, I should have highlighted this change as well as one of the ones we made was around the new ACC tool, the amenity cost tool that we created. Essentially, what we've done is because we've got rid of the rezoning process, it means that over time, because communities now every 5 years are required to update their community plans and update their zoning to that, right? So we give them the housing needs report formula. They have to do a housing needs report. They know how much housing they need. They need to upzone their community to meet that housing needs. So that means over time, we're not going to have many public hearings anymore because rezonings will be a thing of the past. So CACs, I'm not sure if the term is the same in Ontario, but CACs, community contributions, I guess you can call them, are what's negotiated during the rezoning process. And, there is no rhyme or reason for how it works. There's it's basically like, hey, let's go behind closed doors and let's have a conversation about how much you're going to pay us to allow you to do it. We are saying now that public hearings are gone, rezoning is gone, that That'll be not happening anymore. Now, local governments still need money for amenities. And so what we're saying is, here's a new tool. You can't use both. Over time, the CSC tool is going to fade away. This new tool has a couple of things in it. One, you have to have it up front. You have to have the cost up front so that people know what it is and it's not something negotiated when they're halfway into the project. Second, you have to do an economic analysis before you set the fee. So you have to, identify publicly on the record what amenities you want to be building over the coming years so that people know where the money's actually going. Second, you have to do analysis, and your fee cannot hinder the development. So that means they have to actually do the numbers to say, okay, how much capacity, how much space is there for this type of amenity, and how much can we actually charge? And they can't charge for anything that was already there. So now, if you have a project that was 10 units, okay, and you're building 10 units, you can't charge a fee because you're not adding any net units to the community. You can only charge for the portion of the community that is new. So it's actually encouraging local governments to say, if I have 10-unit building that's old, run down, why would I approve it for 10? I want to approve it for 20, 30, 40, because I can, on that additional piece, get the amenities that I need for my community. So we are actually, in that way, shifting it to a new way of doing it. And we're also helping fund a lot of infrastructure ourselves, right? Like $1 billion we put out. Communities haven't even all decided on where the money's going. So I hear you. I know it's real. It's a real pressure. I talked to, obviously, development community, not-for-profits, all of them are struggling. Interest rates, global inflation, labor shortages, you name it. It's a perfect storm. And so we're trying our best to kind of find that balance. And this new tool is an example.
Ravi, I got one more quick one.
I got one.
I'm going to
Steve, let me get in quick. Okay. Flipping tax. So on the surface, I totally understand it. Like it makes total sense to me. If you're someone trying to get into the market and you're going against an investor, it's tough. Now, if they did nothing to the house and it goes up in money and they sell it, I can get that. But if they're doing meaningful renovations to take it from a place that's not a great living situation to a bit higher, is there anything that could be done there where it's actually encouraging people to do that so that tenants aren't living in situations that are maybe below what we would consider a good living situation?
Well, if they're really gutting this place out, then they're exempt.
Okay.
And so they're exempt. If they're adding units, they also are exempt. So we're actually trying to encourage, you buy a heritage home, it's nice. We want you to fix it up. But if you can make it into 4 or 5 units, you don't have to pay the fee. You're selling these units individually. We're trying to encourage that. The big thing that doesn't get talked about this tax, yes, it's for buyers and it's that competition thing. But you know how many home builders are frustrated as heck because by the time that parcel comes to them, it's been flipped so many times that they cannot make money on it, and they have to sit on it for 5 years for the market to catch up. And so this will also enable the home builders to be able to get access to properties in a more quicker way so that they can build as well.
Well, that, Tom, was my
that was your fun.
I definitely I'll tack it on there real quick. So, for instance, if I did just buy a single family home and I added either an unauthorized or authorized basement suite, would that count as adding a unit, and then I would be able to avoid that tax?
Well, if it's unauthorized, you definitely wouldn't. But authorized, I know we're going through the bill debate right now. If it's an extra unit for sale, like if you've got a building and you've created, instead of one, you've got 2 units for sale, then I get it. But if it's just creating a rental suite, I'm not entirely sure. It's the Ministry of Finance that's leading this bill, and that's a question I'll have to follow up with you on if it's just a basement suite. But we do have a program coming on that, right? We have our Home Sweet Home program, which is going to launch soon, within a few weeks. And that program essentially is saying we will give you 50% of the dollars needed to create a rental suite in your home or an accessory dwelling unit. If you rent it below market rate over a certain period of time, we'll make it non-repayable. So you get extra cash flow for the person who wants the suite. The person renting it gets it below market, and we get to increase the housing supply. So it's a pilot. We're going to see how it goes, but it's going to launch within a few weeks.
So there is something there. I think that was number 15 or 16 then on my list here for the whole thing. Yeah, that is one concern I have, because I do know that there are legitimate guys that buy terrible homes that nobody should live in, and unfortunately they were being rented out to people that can't afford better accommodations. And so, like, if you're doing it as a business and claiming it as a business income, I'm not sure if that is exempt. You're saying that there may be some exemptions for improvements.
Yeah, if you're doing serious work to that, I mean, if you're basically taking it to the studs, there is exemptions for that, and I'll share the details with you after this.
Well, then I have a little bit less criticism of that one, so I appreciate that.
Better for you. That's good.
Ravi,
we have kept you too long, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom?
It's
Too
great.
long.
So,
Thank you so much for coming back.
Yeah, no, happy to talk to you guys. I'm still listening to the podcast. I go for my morning walks, and so keep up the good work. And again, we're not done. We have more work to do, and I'm sure I'll be back again soon.
I hope we can do a part 3. We always bring up your name to other guests to make them know we're credible. So we thank you for being here. And by the way, I don't live in BC, but I know a lot of people that do. They're very lucky to have you. I really do mean that. You're actually doing something, and I think it's awesome.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, and maybe next time I'm out in Ontario, we'll see you face to face.
I'd love to do it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and hopefully everyone enjoyed watching and listening.
If you are a real estate agent in Ontario, you know all about TRESA and RICO's information guide, but your clients don't. So we are excited to introduce you to TRESAvideo.ca. It's a dynamic tool designed to help you simplify the complexities of TRESA while explaining RICO's information guide to your clients. TRESA Video is more than just a visual aid. It's a strategic investment in your brand's integrity and your client's education. Tom and his team use their own custom branded video that they purchased from TRESAvideo.ca in communications with their clients. Simply embed a link in your email signature, upload your video to YouTube, place it on your website, share it via text, or integrate your custom branded video into email campaigns using any CRM. Check out TRESAvideo.ca or click the link below. Quickly upload your branding and instantly elevate your trust and transparency with your clients. That's TRESAvideo.ca. TRESA video.ca.
Wow. Okay, so we're back from the interview with the housing minister. I just need to say, first of all, he's just a really nice guy more than anything else. And we've realized that twice now. And now we know officially, Steve, that Ravi is a friend of the show, which is awesome. So was there anything that he said specifically that now after, because we're recording this basically a day after we had that conversation with him, that you're looking back and going like, oh, that was really interesting now that I've heard it a second time, or something that I wish I had asked him that we didn't ask him? What was your initial reaction from that conversation with Ravi?
I just really wish we could get more of his time to dive into things. I think the one thing, I guess, that is it's a housing issue, but it's not, is for me, it was like the anti-flipping tax is actually not his file. Right? It's not the housing file. It's actually the budget. So it's kind of hard to think about that way, right? So you have the whole government taking action through different levels or different members of the Legislative Assembly, basically. Yep. So that's actually not something that he's in charge of. It's through the budget minister, whoever that is, and however they work that. But what I was really impressed, so I really dove into, I got interviewed for an article about the flipping tax. So, and like right after we just did that. So just yesterday. And I really dug into like the government's flipping tax. Tom, I want to shit on it so bad. And it looks like they have done the correct things to stop the thing that nobody wants. The thing that nobody wants is someone buys a home, the market's hot, they buy it, they do a 4-month completion, the market rises $100,000. The day it completes, they put a sign in the ground and they flip it for $100,000, and they make, after expenses and transfer taxes, let's say they make $70,000, and they just flip it on to the next, and it's just a quick buck. And it looks like if they implement it the way they're proposing to, it's actually going to avoid taxing people who are trying to do things like renovations, who are trying to add units, who are trying to do it for a business, and not just these guys that are doing this principal residence exemption to try and make a quick buck.
The one thing I was thinking about is like there's some people that, yes, are strategic and have their spreadsheets and look at different areas and try to find opportunities and mostly try to find it off market, where as real estate agents, like I think the sellers for the most part are getting ripped off. We can really go on about that. There's some people that just bought a house, didn't do anything to it. And I know there's a whole list of things that gets them out of this. But let's say it's not a job thing. Let's say it's not a death in the family or anything like that. Let's just say they bought a house and they realize they don't like it anymore. And it hasn't been that period of time. And they're just so happened to be lucky that the price went up. Like that is a real thing that happens.
Yeah, those people are going to get caught.
I guess for the greater good.
That's
right?
it.
Yeah.
Like there's a famous story, I mean CTV famous, but there's a story that comes up every single year of this guy in Richmond that's caught in the speculation tax because his wife is American.
Yeah.
And the government has said 100% you will never be exempt from this. So he's owned the house for 20 years. They bring in a tax, and because his wife is American and works for an American company, he is screwed. So those things are going to happen, and there should be some level of ability to work around that. But I mean, after looking at all this stuff, I think things like the cooling off period is stupid. I think the removal of strata rental restrictions was stupid because it actually caused house prices to go up. But
did it not unlock? But it unlocked inventory. Like the market's going to do what the market does. Like not everything they're doing. I know that the grand scheme of this, not scheme, but the idea is to make housing more affordable and bring more options. If they do something that unlocks inventory that initially pushes up prices, but long-term is a good thing to unlock inventory, you can't really make a decision on something based on 6 months into this.
Here's the problem I have with, with working with, speaking to Ravi and his situation, we're probably never going to be able to get down to the brass tacks of the NDP is going to be a party that's going to look to support renters, and other parties will look to support home ownership. Mm-hmm. And that's just going to be a line.
That's always been the case, has it not?
But I am on the side of homeowners, right? Like that is where I want to be. That's where I feel, that's where my business is. That's where I feel the goal should be. I don't think we should be promoting this like we're going to make rentals a better situation, because I don't think it's actually a better situation for the society as a whole for the long run. So when we're doing all of these things like opening up rentals in all of stratas, that has backhanded homeowners that don't want to live in that area, right? They've just basically said, no, you have to live around tenants, even if all the owners get together and say, we want this to be an owner-occupied building. So that sort of thing is like, it's just going to be a fundamental difference of the way we think. And I'm not going to sit here and put him on the spot for that type of different philosophical difference, right? Like it is what it is. There's no winning that argument. So I would love to press him on that just to know where his thoughts are. But I mean, he's sitting in office. He's not going to tell me anything other than the party line. I would assume there, right?
Right. The one thing that I was thinking about is that when we talked to him about what about the landlords? Because it's for a long time, owning real estate, investing in real estate, all that was kind of like, it was hyped up. It was like this cool thing to do. If you, especially even all the new immigrants coming to Canada, it was like the goal is come here and own, right? Now the home ownership rate has gone down. I think it's at 63% in Canada right now. It was as high as 69. Now, obviously all these changes are just BC. We know that, but BC is a, pretty substantial market across Canada. You think in 10 years from now, is it, if 60% is the over-under on home ownership rate in Canada, do you think we're over or under in 10 years from now, generally across the board?
Yeah, I think it's going down. I think we're going to. I think it is just a maturing society, though.
But is
that
it
gets
is it
there.
a bad thing going down? Because there's a lot of people that think like no matter what, the government's just trying to get us to a place where we own nothing and we're happy with it and we live our lives and we just run through their system. Is because most of the new stuff coming, and we asked them about this, is it's rentals. A lot of it's rentals.
Yeah, but it's rentals. Well, it's when you're going to get me on the hook here, Tom. It's rentals because you're making the poor poorer, and you're not giving them an option, right? Like, how much did your gas go up?
I don't know. I didn't look. I just knew it cost me about $5 more than normal to fill up my car the other day.
Yeah, we were 8 cents a liter on April 1st.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, I can afford that. Tom Storey can afford that. Can the guy trying to get to Safeway for his shift or whatever? I don't know. You're making the poorer, and that's going to push more people into rentals. And it's just not my idea of a good thing.
Hey,
so
speaking about rentals,
I think one thing we should have asked him or pushed him on. He's not going to answer this either, but like he must be. Also
I think he was. Can I just say one thing?
Government.
Sorry, say that again. Sorry, I cut you off.
I think he's going to be frustrated with the federal government too, right? I think everybody looking at like the floodgates of people just still coming in. Oh, they're reducing our non-permanent residents by 6% of the population to 5%. Yeah. But we're still letting in 800,000 people a year. Like, I don't know. It must be frustrating.
Phil Soper, who's been a guest on this program before, he did a really great presentation on birth rate at something that I was just at. And just showed like right now in Canada, it's 1.3, right? So for every woman, 1.3 children are being born, right? So for every 2 parents involved that created that child, like we're decreasing. So it's very clear. And he showed like if it keeps at that rate, here's where we go if we don't have any. We need to get it up to at least 2, that 1.3 to 2, just to make sure that we're getting to a point that the population doesn't decrease. There's as many people born as many people die, right? And then, well, like, what if it gets worse? What if it gets under 1? How much are we going to have to rely on immigration just to make sure that the country's actually growing and not dropping off significantly? Because there's other countries around the world that are like 0.7, and their populations are plummeting.
Oh, yeah. Have you ever looked into, and I just said it. I just said the looked into it thing. Have you ever like done that? So that's Elon Musk's big thing. He's like by 2080, he says, we don't have to worry about all this pollution. We don't have to worry about none of this stuff. He's like, and by 2080, which is basically 2 more generations, let's call it.
Sure.
He's like, that's complete population collapse. So he's like, you guys are not, what's he got? Like 10 kids now with
he's pumping them out
or something. Like he's trying to fight it as best he can. But that's actually his argument for like Optimus and trying to make the personal robots and all this stuff. He's like, this ain't nothing yet. You think we got labor shortage now? He's like, unless people start having kids, and then as we educate people, then they start having fewer kids. So like the way out of all of this situation is to incentivize people to work. It's to educate them. Because when they're educated, they pollute less and they care about polluting less, right? And then they start to actually have less kids as well, right? So the whole idea behind this is if we educate people, none of this stuff, none of this carbon tax crap is going to matter. None of it matters. Just educate people, get them out of poverty, and things are going to be much better in the long run. I'm just glad that I likely won't make it to 2080, so we won't worry about the population collapse for me.
I thought the new goal was like 120 or 130. I thought that's what we're going for.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
Dude, the way AI is progressing, like even if our physical bodies aren't here, our minds might still be here at some point.
Download the AI Tom Storey show is going to be going on for 150 years.
I was thinking about introducing AI into this show, having an intro at some point where it's me and you talking, but it's not me and you talking, and seeing if anyone can tell. So I'm not going to tell you what episode I'm going to do it on.
That'd be fun. Okay, let's go back to this thing with Ravi because he was so great to come on. So out of what you've seen here and all the things we talked about, what would you as an outsider like to see come, or what like portions
Easy.
of this would you like to see come to you in Ontario or other areas that you think might actually affect something?
There's two, and I think it's fairly easy for me. I loved what Ravi said, and the fact that, like, if you're not going to allow fourplexes, we don't get any further. Like, nothing's going to change. Like, that has to be step one. That's where it starts. Doug Ford was very clear. I think a week ago he made a statement saying he's not going to force this on any municipalities. They're going to let them make their decisions, right? So he's really walked back on it.
So Doug Ford says that he's not going to force fourplexes on people?
Yep.
Or on municipalities? Then no municipality will do it because they don't want them built, because it's expensive to build them because of infrastructure.
So we'll see, right? So I think that is the blanket. Like, if you did the blanket across Ontario, everything. Now, some people will be mad, some people will be happy, like we've seen with BC. I do think long term, it would make a difference if population growth continues at a pace at which it's at right now. The other thing also was just like bringing in something that in some way will help first-time home buyers with land transfer tax. It's so silly how much money we have to pay to enter a market, and then we have to pay the development fees and everything else involved as a new buyer that doesn't own anything. Steve, before we were recording this, before we hit record, I was complaining with Steve about how much he has left on his mortgage, what his house is worth versus his payment versus what my house is worth, the payment that I have, how much I have left on my mortgage. I said, Steve, you just were born earlier. Like, sorry, I was in grade 9 drinking in a park. Sorry, Mom, when you were buying your first house.
Hey, guess what? I didn't drink in grade 9. Maybe your alcoholism is your problem there, Tom Storey. I didn't start drinking until I was 21. So
you're right. I was 19. It was on my 19th birthday. But anyways, it's like some people are just lucky and unlucky, and when you were born does make a difference. No. I'm not saying everything is luck. I'm saying it plays a part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that the way it works? No.
Yeah. It does.
No.
No. Absolutely.
No. It's not true.
Okay.
It's a bunch of no. Listen. It's not okay. Sure. Can people get dealt a bad hand? Absolutely. People can get dealt a bad hand. I am. Let me give you this just peripheral friends that I have. I know of one set of friends that is having trouble making ends meet right now. Another set of friends that is saying that when their mortgage comes up, they probably will need to move. And another set of friends who has just done a refinance and a crazy renovation. All of them are going to Mexico within the next 3 weeks. Dude, I did it here. We're going to talk about this on our next catch-up episode, whenever that is, but I broke down where my vacation money went and why I put myself in a good spot.
But that makes you happy. That makes you happy. And at any moment, Steve, life can end. And regardless of what you believe, maybe we're reincarnated, maybe it's all good, whatever people believe. If you've worked so hard and been so financially responsible, then one day it's just over. Was it worth it?
That's life.
Because guess what?
It out. Yes, it was worth it.
Because even if you're so good with your money and it goes to your kids, and even if they're good with it and it goes to their kids, guess what, Steve? At some point down that generation, someone's going to screw it up. Okay? It's going to happen.
Of course.
Someone's going to lose it all.
Yeah. I'm not worried about my passing money to my children. That's not the worry that I have for my children is that I teach them how to make their own and be responsible with it, but not mine to them. That's a stupid way to do it too. I'm going to channel my inner Ron Butler here. Fuck your happiness, man. Happiness is not the key. Pursuit of happiness is the key. Right? So you will never just enjoying yourself. Like, what are you going to spend if I was enjoying myself, Tom, I'd be in Vegas every single day of my life.
What's stopping you?
I don't do it often.
What's stopping you?
When I go to Vegas, what's stopping me? Responsibility, right? Because here's the thing.
But what if you and your wife were on the same page and you both loved it and the kids were taken care of, or they came with you sometimes?
And what? I just pleasure myself beside the pool for every single day of my life, drinking too much. I become nothing. I'm just hedonistic. Just I'm laying there just indulging myself.
But you know what's funny though? Isn't that what most people believe the goal is to get to a point that you can go sit on a beach and not worry about anything because life's figured out and you have money in the bank? Like, isn't that what we think a vacation is?
Yeah, it should be a vacation. You should enjoy those things, and they should be short term. But if you think that not working is the goal and just pleasuring yourself and just being happy is the goal, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your life, right? The happiest, most successful people I know are hard-working business people, and they're hardworking. They're happy about it. Let me give you an example. Somebody close to me who has always gone through life just kind of like going to work, paying the bills, doing the good job, going on vacations, doing all that, has recently gone for promotions at work, like applied and moved their way up the ladder. And they're like, this feels good. They hated work for the last 20 years.
Right.
And now they're like, oh, wait, like I enjoy what I'm doing every day. It's stressful as all hell.
But 20 years of hate is worth a few years of...
No. What they didn't do, they've only had this change in their life, in their kind of mindset over the last few years. And like, oh, maybe I should try and elevate myself. And they did. And they're loving it. And that's where we should be. And all these people complaining and pleasuring themselves and going on vacations. If you're worried about making your payment when your renewal comes up, Mexico is off the list, Tom Storey.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement.
Save that $7,000 that vacation fund, put it on your mortgage, because that might be the thing that keeps a roof over your kid's head. But it's just
sell your house, downsize something smaller, have money in the bank in a vacation account that you're okay to spend, and you have options. But if you want to keep the house you have, then yeah, be smarter with it, obviously. But that's easier said than done for so many people, Steve, because imagine there's like 4 families going on this vacation. They've been doing it for 10 years. And it comes up again, and they're like, you're in this position.
You've been going every year for 10 years?
No,
that's why you're in the position you're in.
Not me. Let's just say, okay, fine. Every 2 years, you go on this trip, and these, your 4 friends you grew up with, and you go with all your families, and it's this tradition, and it happens, right? And you don't want to be the one that tells them, I'm in a bad financial position, I can't go this year, so you swallow the pill, and you're just like, fine, I'll just go. I'm just going to do it because that is like
responsible with my money.
That's a lot. That's a lot of people's life, man. And that's just one example. That happens all the time.
So smarten up, be good with your money, and have the balls to tell people you are not going to do this.
Easier said than done for most people. I really think that.
Oh, I agree with you there. Yeah, the people are they're just going to complain and make excuses about why it's not fair or whatever, and it's just BS. Grind it out. Tom, I wanted to tell you guys, you whiners out there in Toronto. I apologize for calling everyone in Toronto whiners. What was your property tax increase?
Like just under 10%.
10%. Okay. In the year 2023, on April 17th, Surrey City Council increased property taxes 12.5% from the proposed 17.5%.
So it's smart that they proposed it so high so that 12 sounded pretty reasonable, right? That's marketing. That's smart.
Look at this deal we can give you. We can give you we'll give you a third off, 33% off our property tax hike. But I mean, it does sound like, and this is, I think, going to be the new thing that's going to make me unpopular amongst many other things, is I think if we're going to do the fair share thing, it's property tax that should be there. I think it should be spread amongst the population as a whole, through renters, through homeowners, through everybody. It needs to get spread around, because we got to get these development fees out of the way.
But we're thinking in our minds, and we talked with this about with Ravi, property tax go up, development fee go down. It's not what's going to happen, because we know how this
they're both going to go up.
They're both going to go up, and that's the problem here. Okay, I got one final comment, going back to the Ron episode for a second here, and all the mortgage fraud talk and everything like that.
By the way, people love swearing. We need to swear more.
I know. You see a few of the shots you put out. they're not. They won't allow YouTube won't allow it to be monetized because there's too many f-bombs. Thought that was pretty funny. I am in the midst right now. I'm not going to go in full detail here, but I'm in the midst of moving my mortgage, and all I want to say is I'm moving it from one big bank to another big bank. The bank that I am moving it to is actually the bank that I've banked with since when I opened my first account, however old I was. Okay. They have my personal accounts, my business accounts. We'll go.
Is it a blue bank? Is it a blue bank to a green bank?
Cannot confirm or deny. But what I can say,
blue bank to a red bank,
is that the bank I'm going to has all of my statements, has everything. Like literally, they have my money, they have my accounts, and the back and forth I'm going through right now to move my mortgage to pay my penalty, which it actually makes sense because I can get such a lower rate because I was just me, like many people, were unlucky when we had to renew. Oh my God, man. They have asked me for absolutely everything. So if mortgage fraud is happening, they really know what they're doing because I know we've made jokes about this before, but like, man, everything. I had to upload probably between the business side and the personal side, like 40 documents to this portal.
Yeah, but maybe that's because you're only dealing with somebody that's legit. And then the mortgage fraud people are the not legit people, and they're like, "Don't worry about those documents. I'll find them myself."
I guess you're right. I'm uploading it to a broker's portal that's working on my behalf to go to the bank. It's not actually from the bank, so I guess that's a good point.
What's the calculation that you thought was like worth it to do this change?
Basically, the prepayment availabilities on if I move it over, the lump sums that I can make are better. The penalty's even better. Not that I'm going to break it again, but the penalty's better. It will be easier that it's all in one place. That has nothing to do with the rate or anything.
Do you have a big smash like penalty that you're going to take a shot in the?
Can you guess what the penalty would be? You want to guess?
I don't know how big your mortgage is. I mean, it's at least $15,000.
It's about $15,000. Yeah,
crazy.
But the numbers on a monthly basis, principal, interest, and the fact that if I pay the penalty even before moving it over, I could actually throw some more money into it because you're already breaking it to get the mortgage. Does that make sense?
Are you taking another 3-year then?
I'm working on that right now. I don't know 100%. But I do think that's probably where I'm headed because the 3-year money right now is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty cheap.
And I thought Ron made a really good statement too in the fact that like the fixed rate was the first mover on the way up, and it's probably going to be the first mover on the way down as well. Eventually, it is right now. Obviously, there's a huge gap between fixed and variable.
Oh, dude, I don't think they're going to drop that variable rate for a long time.
It's so funny because I think we're talking to pretty smart people about this, like really smart people on a daily basis. And
everybody keeps saying like, "Oh, it's coming up pretty quick. It's coming up." I guess we're recording this right before our rate announcement, so by the time this comes out,
nothing's going to happen.
Well, you can tell us. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, you can tell us if we're wrong, but
like I thought, like June, July, and now I'm thinking, like
September.
You would be
is there a September
silly
date?
Right now? If you have a variable rate mortgage still, and now the 3 years are 5%, what are you doing?
Well, I can tell you what they're doing. Because they probably have a static variable, well, they're still making lower payments, even though 85 to 90% of it's going to interest, in that it's allowing them to keep their property. So you can break it and take it to fix.
If you have a Scotia variable, it would make sense, but if everywhere else, it doesn't make sense.
I think that's what's going on.
Can we outlaw that product yet?
We can ask some people. We'll try to get more people on the show to ask them.
Ravi, could you please outlaw the static payment variable in BC?
Which no one even knew what it was until 2 years ago.
That's why my question was for Ron. I was like, well, so what else do we know? Like, there's so many terms in a mortgage that people don't know, like total indebtedness clauses, that they register the charge up to the purchase price as opposed to the mortgage amount. So they clog up your title so you can't borrow more money against it. Like, there's so many of these things that everybody's like, oh, I don't care. Right? It's like the open offer thing. People are like, it's not a problem until it's a problem, and then they want it, right? So people don't care enough. People are just too busy living their lives and going to Mexico.
Well, hopefully, if you're listening to this in Mexico, you're having a wonderful vacation. But if you're not,
if you're listening to this from Mexico, please leave us a comment down below.
Let us know. I hope everybody enjoyed that episode. I think we went a little bit long today, but hopefully you enjoyed the conversation before and after the Ravi interview. Steve, any final thoughts?
No, I hope he keeps coming back. I'm happy that we're there, and I'm happy we can get on some nice, good, credible people here, and hopefully that'll keep us, I guess, increasing our. What did you say? What did you tell him? He's making us legitimate. So there you go.
Yeah, we can tell
because
other guests we've had him on, and it helps us get other guests. And I really mean that. Like when you guys comment, when you like this show, when you subscribe, it allows us to get people that have very, very high credibility to say yes to come on because you're here. It allows us to get better guests if you keep showing up and keep telling us you're here.
The only difference is when those guests say yes, then the day before we record, they say no.
Yeah, it's happened a few times.
That becomes a problem. But I
think that's
one
all part
day,
of it.
Tom. One day, Tom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put out a list of names of who do you think the canceled people were on like the survey. And just so this will be years from now.
Okay.
And then just so you know, all of those names will be the people that canceled. And you're going to be like, well, I wonder if it was that big name or if it was that big name. If it was, and then it will all be those people.
I think that's just how this works. People that have teams around them try to keep them safe and in their little cocoon and their bubble. And I get it. I've talked to Daryl and TK about this. They've had people that they've been trying to get that say no, like, or say yes and change their mind. Like this happens to all of us. I think it's just par for the course.
Yeah.
But that's it. We're going to wrap it up. I hope all of you have an amazing rest of your weekend. If you're listening on Sunday, if you're listening during the week, well, I hope you have a great week. I hope you are walking your dog. And Ravi, if you've made it to the end and you're listening to this episode, thank you so much for joining us again. And hopefully we can do a three-peat at some point in the future.
I'm sorry for calling all the people in Toronto and all the home buyers dumb or stupid.
See, Steve's progressing people. He's getting better because he used to say things about people and then I'd have to tell him to say sorry. Now he's catching himself and doing it himself. So we're
still going to say it, though.
We're moving in the right direction. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Bye.